When life doesn't go according to plan, it can feel like God has forgotten about you, or worse, He doesn't even care. You find yourself in a season where everything seems to be going wrong. You may ask yourself, why is this happening to me? Where is God in all of this? But what if I told you that every setback was actually a setup for God's comeback in your life? What if those moments when you felt abandoned were actually the exact moments when God was orchestrating an even greater plan for you? She confessed her feelings of discouragement and reaffirmed her desire to trust in His perfect plan. As she prayed, she clung to the belief that if it was God's will, a way would be found. Sarah decided to take a break from the constant pursuit of answers. She needed time to rest and recharge her spirit. As she took a step back from the overwhelming journey, Sarah began to notice small glimpses of God's presence in her life. A random act of kindness from a stranger, a beautiful sunrise that filled her with awe, or the comforting words of a friend. These everyday blessings became reminders that God was still with her, even in the midst of her struggles. Days turned into weeks, and still no answers came. Holding her in her arms, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She knew that this moment was a testament to God's faithfulness. He had made a way where there seemed to be none. Looking back on her journey, Sarah realized that her setbacks were actually setups for God's comeback in her life. The pain of infertility had led her to a deeper relationship with God. It had taught her the importance of patience, trust, and gratitude. And most importantly, it had opened her heart to a love she never thought possible. Our pain may be used for our own growth and for the blessing of others. Just as Joseph's suffering resulted in his promotion and the salvation of nations, our present difficulties may be paving the way for future breakthroughs and opportunities. If so, know that you're not alone. We've all faced moments in our lives where the path ahead seemed unclear. Trust in His wisdom and let Him illuminate the path before you. When you feel lost or confused, remember that God is your light and your salvation. Open your heart to His guidance and have faith that He will lead you to the right decisions that will shape your future for the better. And the weight of making the right choices felt overwhelming. Trust in God's plan for your life and know that He will make a way for you. Stay tuned for more uplifting content, and may God bless you on your way. But remember, God is with you every step of the way, and He wants to guide you towards the best path for your future. We must hold on to our faith, knowing that God is in control and that He can use our circumstances to bring about His perfect plan. She immersed herself in God's Word, seeking wisdom and strength through the stories and teachings within its pages. Take these words to heart and know that God is ready to be your teacher, counselor, and guide. If you're feeling tired and heavy under the weight of your decisions, come to Jesus. Seek refuge in His love and strength. He offers you peace and rest for your soul, allowing you to approach your future with a renewed sense of hope and clarity. He wants to help you make the right decisions and walk confidently towards your future. Their story is a powerful reminder that when we trust in God's timing, He can turn our seemingly hopeless situations into testimonies of His faithfulness and power. God is with you, ready to guide and support you every step of the way. So trust in His wisdom, lean on His strength, and seek His face in prayer. With God by your side, you can face your future with confidence and know that you are in the best hands possible. Instead of fixating on her unanswered prayers, she started focusing on expressing gratitude for the blessings in her life. She appreciated the love and support of her husband, the beauty of nature that surrounded her, and the friendships that sustained her. Just as Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery out of jealousy, they unknowingly set in motion a series of events that would save not only their family, but also an entire nation. Joseph's story teaches us that God can take our painful experiences and turn them into opportunities for growth, healing, and redemption. This newfound attitude of gratitude opened the doors for new possibilities. Despite facing false accusations and imprisonment, Joseph never lost faith in God. Although he was betrayed and sold into slavery, God used this experience to develop Joseph's character, teaching him resilience, patience, and faith. Additionally, it led to the salvation of not only himself and his family, but also the Egyptians and the people of Canaan. He interpreted the dreams of the baker and the cupbearer, remaining hopeful for his own deliverance. Eventually, his time in prison paid off when the Pharaoh had a dream that no one could interpret except Joseph. This dream led to Joseph being released from prison and being placed in charge of all of Egypt's affairs, giving him the power to save the kingdom from famine. She joined a prayer group, surrounding herself with individuals who understood her pain and offered their support and encouragement. Through it all, Sarah held on to the belief that if it was God's will, a way would be found. Finally, the day arrived when they were officially approved to become foster parents. Sarah and her husband couldn't contain their joy. Their dream of having a child was finally coming true. Although the path had been long and winding, they knew it was all part of God's perfect plan. Sarah's faith was tested as doubts began to creep into her mind. She questioned whether God had forgotten about her, or if he simply didn't care. They had a child who needed a loving home, and they thought of Sarah and her husband. Could this be the answer to their prayers? Could this child be the one they had longed for so desperately? Overwhelmed with emotion, Sarah and her husband met with the social worker. As they learned more about the child, their hearts grew with love and compassion. Despite the challenges they might face, they knew they wanted to move forward with the adoption process. The pain of infertility weighed heavily upon her, and she struggled to understand why her prayers were not being answered. In today's episode, we are going to look at a real faith story that exemplifies the truth that when we trust in God's perfect timing, He can turn our seemingly hopeless situations into testimonies of His faithfulness and power. So grab your journal and get ready to be inspired by the amazing things God can do when we choose to believe in His will. If it's God's will, you will find a way. The journey began with a deep longing for a child. For years, Sarah and her husband had prayed for a baby, but their prayers seemed to go unanswered. Discouraged and disappointed, they considered all other options, including adoption. However, Sarah's heart remained set on carrying a child of her own. Her faith in God's promises never wavered. She knew that if it was God's will, a way would be found. Sarah turned to God in prayer, pouring out her heart before Him. One day, Sarah stumbled upon a Bible verse that spoke to her soul. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. In Isaiah 40:31 it says, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles." These words brought comfort to Sarah's heart. She realized that, although she couldn't see God working in her situation, He was still in control. Waiting on God's perfect timing meant trusting in His ability to make a way where there seemed to be none. With renewed determination, Sarah recommitted herself to prayer and patiently waited for God's response. During this time of reflection, Sarah delved deeper into her faith. Weeks went by, and Sarah's perspective began to shift. One evening, while spending time in prayer, Sarah received an unexpected phone call. It was a social worker from a local adoption agency. Months passed, filled with paperwork, home studies, and anticipation. A few weeks later, they welcomed a beautiful baby girl into their lives. Through the power of prayer and an unwavering belief in God's will, Sarah and her husband had experienced the miracle of adoption. The end of one story is the beginning of another. Sometimes God's plans for us are far greater than what we initially ask for. When Joseph's brothers betrayed him and sold him to a group of traders, he was taken to Egypt, where he eventually ended up in prison. Joseph's story is a powerful example of how God can take our pain and suffering and use them for good. As we reflect on Joseph's story, we are reminded that when we trust in God's plan, He can bring beauty out of ashes. God will make a way. Have you ever felt like you were at a crossroads in life? Like the decisions you make today will determine your future? Take a moment to close your eyes and ask God for direction. The Bible tells us in Psalm 32:8, "I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. I will counsel you and guide you." In Matthew 11:28, Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Remember, you don't have to go through this alone. As you continue on your journey, may these words of faith and hope inspire you to keep moving forward.